To all the drivers out there delivering holiday cheer across our great country, season's greetings and a huge thank you from the Allen Lund Company.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
We look back at the year that was through the prism of our website, breaking down the 5 stories that yielded the most clicks and eyeballs in 2023. From left lane rules and speed limit changes to an exemption request and speed limiters, we look back at the year that was and the year that will be. You've heard the stories about truck drivers being the victims of predatory towing practices. You might have gone through the situation yourself. A new report from the American Transportation Research Institute shed some new light on just how bad things have become, and it uncovered some eye-opening statistics. ATRI research associate Alex Leslie breaks down what they found. When it comes to comfort in the cab, few things matter more than your seat, and manufacturers are offering a wide variety of options. Our producer Barry Spillman and I will talk with Brian Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia. And finally, 2 state lawmakers in Oregon are pushing for a one-day special session of the legislature to reassess the state's tax collection on large trucks. Scott Thompson talks with our state legislative expert, Keith Goebel. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. The new year provides a natural period of reflection where we look back on the year that was and ahead to the year that will be, which is what we'll do now, starting with a recap of 2023. And as we look back through the past 12 months, we turn to our website, landline.media, for insights into which topics and which stories garnered the most interest. And here's the top 5. Coming in at number 5, 2 separate stories from the same family of sorts, left lane and roundabout restrictions across the United States. In the spring, 4 states were either enacting or considering changes to their left lane laws. New Mexico did make it law in 2023, keeping trucks to the right on interstates. Bills pursuing changes in 3 other states, New Jersey, Florida, and South Carolina, never gained any traction. And then with regard to roundabout rules, Arizona and Colorado both enacted rule changes that cover large trucks maneuvering through the troublesome interchanges. On to the 4th most popular story on landline.media this past year, FMCSA statistics showing a disturbing trend since the start of the electronic logging device mandate in 2018. The story that came out in early January covered FMCSA data from 2020, which showed that deadly crashes nationwide did not drastically decline despite the mandate. That added fuel to the fire for opponents like OOIDA, which continue to argue that there is no evidence that ELDs have improved highway safety. Our 3rd most popular story of 2023, speed limit changes across the country. Back in March, lawmakers in 9 states were calling for revisions to speed limit rules. That included the elimination of speed limit differentials for cars and trucks and increased speeds for all vehicles. Coming in at number 2 on the list of most read stories this past year, a truck driver's split sleeper request that was denied by FMCSA. North Carolina-based trucker Matthew Kilmer asked the agency for an exemption from the hours of service regulations that would allow him and other drivers to split their sleeper berth time into 2 5-hour periods. FMCSA received 279 comments, with 222 in support of Kilmer's request. However, the agency threw cold water on the plea, ultimately determining that Kilmer's exemption would likely not achieve an equivalent level of safety. And finally, the most popular story on landline.media for all of 2023. It's a topic that's likely to be on this list again next year, speed limiters. The story ran in September right after FMCSA set a top speed for its speed limiter proposal, then pulled it right back hours later. In the USDOT September 2023 significant rulemaking report, FMCSA wrote that it would propose that most commercial motor vehicles be speed limited to no faster than 68 miles an hour. But then the agency amended its report to no longer include a top speed in the rule summary for speed limiters. FMCSA has given no explanation still for what happened there. Regardless, the agency is moving toward a proposed mandate in the coming weeks or coming months. It's something we've covered extensively in recent months, including in conversations with 2 U.S. lawmakers who are pushing back in Congress. In the spring, Representative Josh Brecheen of Oklahoma introduced a bill that would prohibit FMCSA from issuing a speed limiter mandate. He told us this is a safety issue first and foremost, since requiring speed limiters on heavy trucks will increase the number of interactions on roadways.
Most Class A CDL drivers are conditioned to flow at the speed of traffic because they understand safety. And so I guess you'd have to be a truck driver to understand and to be sitting in that seat to understand the flow of traffic and how dangerous not going at the flow of traffic.
And Congressman Brecheen told us this is also a states' rights issue.
If one state wants to try something different than another state, great. But the greater issue here is one more place where the federal government is taking rule and authority away from state law. Representative Brecheen's bill, H.R. 3039, also known as the DRIVE Act, currently has 32 co-sponsors. Months later, Senator Steve Daines of Montana followed suit with a similar bill in the Senate. He told us he believes FMCSA's proposal is overreaching and out of touch.
So you fit trucks with these speed limiting devices, it will increase congestion and actually create, in my opinion, and from others who have studied this, create actually more dangerous conditions by creating more differences in speed among vehicles on the roads. These bureaucrats in Washington think they're making our roads safer. I believe they actually will make our roads less safe because of this overreaching rule.
Senate Bill 2671 currently has 9 co-sponsors, but as is the case with the House bill, every single supporter in Congress is from the Republican side of the aisle. Senator Daines said it's important that truck drivers put pressure on their elected representatives and explain to them why this piece of legislation in particular holds extra weight.
Well, I think it's really important that the folks at the grassroots level and our associations are working together to call their senators, call their members of Congress to push back on this radical agenda. And I think it's another reminder about elections having consequences.
A legislative stop to FMCSA's attempts may be the best hope for stopping the regulation from ever taking full shape. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association has opposed the possible mandate from the jump. Association President Todd Spencer says the implications are numerous.
The frustrating part of this for drivers is that, okay, they have to live with the ramifications of whatever rules that these folks come up with. And of course, they live in a real world where they have to interact with other traffic and things like that. And this really isn't a complicated issue. The ideal speed policy for any agency to take, whether it be federal or state or local, is do something, support policies that try to keep traffic moving at or close to the same speed. You want to try to minimize interactions. To the extent that you can minimize interactions, you will improve highway safety because there'll be fewer of them vehicles running into each other. And any kind of policy that these folks come up with that basically increases the likelihood of interactions is not going to be good for highway safety.
Despite the concerns and despite some 15,000 comments on a previous proposal, FMCSA is expected to forge ahead with its plans and issue a notice of proposed rulemaking any day now. And no matter what happens or when, we'll have updates here on the show and at landline.media. To get involved yourself on speed limiters or any number of other issues out there that matter to you, check out fightingfortruckers.com. For Landline Now, I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, we'll talk with an ATRI research associate about predatory towing. Barry Spillman and I will discuss seats with Brian Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia, and Scott Thompson covers a discussion of trucking taxes in Oregon with state legislative expert Keith Goebel. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
And we're back. Our friends at the American Transportation Research Institute are out with a new report that outlines just how bad predatory towing has gotten and what efforts to stem the problem look like. Joining us with the details, ATRI Research Associate Alex Leslie, who joins us on the line now. Alex, how you doing?
Doing well, Scott. Great to be here.
Always good to have you. We always have interesting conversations about these interesting topics that you put these reports out on. This one is very interesting, I found. Again, with regard to predatory towing, let's start where we usually start here with these, the origin story, I guess, of sorts, of this study. We've all heard the stories, of course you have as well, about predatory towing practices and just how bad it's gotten. What was the goal, I suppose, at the outset of this study? Was it just to find out how bad this issue has gotten over recent years?
You know, that was a big part of it, Scott. The tricky thing with predatory towing is every crash is unique, right? There are all kinds of different factors that go into this problem, and there's so little data out there. I mean, before our study, there's almost no resources that you could go to find actually how much of a problem this is, which has made combating it really challenging, I think, for a lot of people. So a lot of the trucking associations, state reps have been raising this issue for a couple years now, and we've heard it a lot from OOIDA. Certainly has taken a big role on this too, and our owner-operators that we talk to. So this was voted one of our top research priorities last year.
Did that make it challenging? Because as you mentioned there, this is sort of arbitrary in a way, right? Because we have these rates out there. There isn't a set rate necessarily for this type of thing. We know that the vast majority of tow companies out there are doing things the right way. They're not trying to cheat people out of money. It's really those few bad actors out there, or I guess more than a few, but the relatively small number of bad actors out there that are really giving the industry kind of a bad name with these practices. How did you go about trying to figure out, I suppose, what predatory towing looks like specifically, if that question makes any sense at all?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I want to echo what you said there too. A lot of great towing companies out there. The trucking industry could not work without good partners in the towing and recovery industry, and frankly, they dislike predatory towing as much as any trucker does because that's hurting their image and it's hurting their business ultimately. So, the tricky thing about predatory towing is there's so many different ways that these practices can slip in. So our first step was we did a big survey of motor carriers and owner-operators to figure out what kinds of issues are you actually encountering. And from that, we saw, excessive hourly or per pound rates was the most common. About 83% of carriers experienced that in 2021. And that was followed by unwarranted extra charges for labor or equipment. Excessive daily storage rates, a couple of the other big ones were delays or access issues on vehicles or cargo, and damage due to improper towing equipment. Also, vehicle seizure without causes. So as you can see, it's a whole span of issues there. And part of the problem, too, is that, of course, legislation, like you suggested, it varies from state to state, sometimes city to city, county to county. So again, it's a real minefield for all kinds of you might say creative, you might say nefarious practices.
Yeah. I want to go back to some of those numbers you mentioned there because I think they're pretty eye-opening when you take into account what they portray or what they say about what truckers are encountering out there. You said nearly 83% of motor carriers said they had experienced excessive rates. About the same percentage said they had experienced unwarranted extra service charges. those are high numbers just on those two alone. And as you said, there hasn't been a lot of study about this issue in particular. This is a very comprehensive look at the issue. Did those numbers surprise you? Because they surprised me a little bit, even knowing, again, the stories or hearing the stories of people out there who have been taken advantage of. Those numbers are really high.
Yeah, they are. And there's a couple caveats to be taken into those numbers. That's self-reported, of course, and that's, some of those are going to be large carriers who have, hundreds of trucks. So, of course, they're much more likely to encounter it once in a year, which is why actually the second part of this research was so crucial, where we then went and we collected invoices from fleets and from OIDA in order to be able to really analyze a set, complete group of towing invoices from a single time span. And in that we found that 29.8% of invoices had some form of predatory billing. So either those excessive rates or those unwarranted extra service charges. And that number certainly surprised me as well, because, again, we really looked into that. It's a very controlled, anyone who's really into the data analysis, you can read more about the method there, but it's a very controlled, reliable number on the frequency of these issues. And again, that's pretty high. And we saw that is partly across things like equipment rates themselves. About 6.3% of invoices we studied had excessive equipment rates. But a lot of it is the kind of nickel and diming that you see with miscellaneous fees. That was 8% of invoices had some predatory level of miscellaneous costs, which, miscellaneous costs are unavoidable. Sometimes, things like cleaning up oil, cleaning up, taking out a drive shaft. But when you're seeing a bunch of costs for things like gloves, radios, those are the kinds of things where they add up and quickly enter a predatory territory.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like when you go to the hospital for whatever procedure, and you check the bill afterward, and they've charged you $300 for an aspirin pill or something. That's what it feels like with this. We could talk numbers all day, and I think, again, these numbers are important because I don't think we had necessarily a clear-cut idea of just how big this problem has become. And I guess I can ask you in kind of a more subjective way, these numbers do say that this is a big problem. I mean, again, whether you take that 83% or the 29% or whatever, we're throwing numbers all over the place, but they do paint a picture of a very problematic issue in trucking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's not an if, it's a when, is what these numbers are high enough to suggest, basically.
Right. Basically, not an if, but a when as to when you are going to need a towing service and you are going to encounter something like this, in other words. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So we've established that this is a problem, which obviously is the first step, I think, to coming up with solutions. And as we kind of mentioned there earlier, we've got a patchwork of different states and cities. And I mean, the regulations and rules throughout the country are all over the place when it comes to predatory towing in particular. Your report did look at, the causes, the solutions, and what maybe we can do to kind of stem this problem, or at least start to stem this problem. What can be done, or I guess what should be done to spearhead these efforts and get them started in earnest to make sure that fewer people are getting, screwed over, essentially?
Yeah. It's a problem that has a lot of different groups involved, and it's going to take work from all of them to solve, right? We need some better regulations in a lot of states. Things like requiring invoice itemization. It's really hard to know if you're being charged in a predatory manner if you don't know what you're being charged for, right? Things like cargo release and actually giving explicit priority to motor carriers or owner-operators to choose a towing company of their preference. Some states have laws on the books that say, it would be nice if that happens, but there's no real force, and so it often doesn't happen in practice. And for those regulations to take place, we need good advocacy, and we also need cooperation with, in partnership with the towing and recovery industry itself. A couple key things that drivers and owner-operators can do is if you're in a crash, take pictures and videos of everything. Your vehicle, your cargo, your trailer. Also, other vehicles involved in the crash. The state of the roadway or any surrounding environmental impacts. And then also any recovery process. How many wreckers are actually on the scene? What's actually taking place? If you have that evidence, you can right away nip in the bud a lot of the ways that towing companies can, if they so wish, take on predatory billing. Another key one for drivers that I want to really emphasize is do not sign any consent forms on the side of the road. You do not have to do that. You should not do that. And it can get you into a lot of trouble. It can cause the tow to no longer be covered by any existing regulations that may be there to protect you. And it can cause you to approve rates that may be predatory. So, again, don't sign any consent forms on the roadside.
Yeah, I mean, taking a whack at this issue, it starts obviously with the incident that we're talking about on a personal level for those people. When you look at the bigger problem, and any time you want to solve a bigger problem, it's going to take more time and more effort. Is this just a matter of getting this message out to local communities and states and putting these rules on the books? I mean, what does that look like, I suppose, based on your research, in how we really need to go about making sure that this issue kind of goes away and everybody's on level ground here?
Yeah. I think the first step is, control what you can definitely control, right? We've got to make sure that drivers and owner-operators know the things that they can do to prevent predatory attempts from getting any farther. Those things like I just said, photographs, don't sign anything. Next, then, we got to get more of this information out there, things like what excessive rates actually look like, the kind of, nitty-gritty numbers that are in this report, so that, again, people actually know this is a real problem. It can happen to you, and you need to know what to be able to do. And then finally, we need to have continued steps to combat this issue at the regulatory level. And I know that there are some states who have recently had some success on this. I know Maryland has just passed some new rules that look like they will be effective. And so, continuing that effort on the advocacy side is something that I know that the state associations are interested in, and hopefully this report will help give them a bit of that data background to be able to push those things forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned there are towing associations out there who also don't like this. They don't like predatory towing because, as you said earlier, this gives everybody a bad name when this happens. And we've got, frankly, small business truckers cannot afford to pay some of these bills, and it puts people out of business. So it's definitely an issue that is important. It is affecting people, and I think this report does go a long way to answering some questions and, again, hopefully pushing people in the right direction to taking action to make sure that this, practice goes away. Alex, we really appreciate your time. Appreciate you putting the work in on this report. I do think it is going to have some value down the line. So we thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And shout out to the work you guys have done. I know you've done a lot of stories over the few years here on predatory towing as well. And, getting that information out there definitely helps everyone. So.
Absolutely. That was Alex Leslie of the American Transportation Research Institute. You can check out this report for yourself on their website, truckingresearch.org, and check out their other studies while you're there as well. We've got a break coming up fast, but don't go anywhere. There's more Landline Now on the other side.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine ViberTech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with ViberTech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Landline Now. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mark Reddick. It's time for another installment of Mafia Secrets, Advice from the Boss Man, with Brian Martin of 4 State Trucks, home of the Chrome Shop Mafia. Once again, I'm here in Studio A with our producer and resident gearhead, Barry Spillman, and we're on the line with Brian Martin of Joplin, Missouri's Chrome Shop Mafia. Brian, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Doing mighty fine. How's things up north?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
You bet.
Well, we're going to talk today about seating options, which is pretty darn important for anybody driving truck and being in there for a long period of time. I guess, Brian, the thing I'm curious about are what are the basics these days? What should you expect to get in any seat that you buy?
Well, you make a good point there. When you're a driver or an owner-operator, and it comes to, top 5 most important things on your vehicle, the seating has definitely got to be up there at 1, 2, or top 3 for sure. But, seating's came a long ways the last 15 years. I can remember it wasn't that long ago, and we've talked about this on segments in the past, where you could walk through the seating department at any Chrome shop or dealership, and really the seats were going to start at about $349, and they were going to go up to about $575, $599 for a top-of-the-line seat. But as, inflation and cost of materials and labor and COVID happens, those prices have really, really been pushed up over the last midterm, the last few years. We kind of, at our store down here, and we sell a ton of seats. We've got kind of the 4 major food groups, and it's bumpers, exhaust kits, fenders, and seats. And that's really, the large majority of our customers are coming in primarily to look at one of those 4 categories. And, now seats kind of start at $500 and go well up over $1,000, even into the $1,200s, $1,300s, and things like that. But, you've got so many enhanced suspensions and multiple lumbars. It wasn't that long ago, lumbar was a knob, a mechanical knob on the backrest where you turned that knob and you could kind of feel some sort of metal structure pushing on your the middle of your back. And that was lumbar not all that long ago. Well, now some of these seats have 5 different lumbar air pillows, both in the backrest and in the lower cushion. As I mentioned, improved suspensions with some very high-tech advanced hydraulic and gas shocks to work alongside the airbag that's in the base. They've got new suspensions with improved geometry that just takes a lot of that hard jar, kind of that spine-cracking jar out of some of the rough spots in the road and things of that nature. And then the ultra leathers. I got to tell you, we sell some genuine leather seats, but these ultra leathers, there's a lot of pros for the ultra leather, maybe that even outperform the genuine leather. So they've just came a long ways. And man, if you're going to be stuck in the cab, whether you're driving or sitting in the seat, doing paperwork or killing time or whatever, when you're going to be in that seat, sometimes 15, 16 hours a day, you want the very best that your budget can afford, or you want the very best that the industry has to offer. So it's kind of an ever-changing product line, but it really has came a long ways just in the last 7-8 years.
Brian, let's put this price thing in perspective. I'm going to go back here about 10 or 12 years ago, but remember the Bose ride? Remember the Bose ride? Weren't those like $6,000 or something like that?
They were, and nothing to take away from Bose. And I've told this story to several people over my career. I probably have talked truck seats as much as anybody on the planet, and talked to different drivers and manufacturers and everything, but primarily customers about them. I probably know 4 guys maybe that ever had a Bose seat or got to drive in a Bose seat. I think they were that Lamborghini of seats that everybody talks about, and they know a distant friend of a friend of a friend that has one, but nobody really ever nobody largely sprung for the investment to own a Bose seat that I ran across. What was your guys' experience?
I think they were trying to get insurance companies. I mean, I think that was they realized they were so expensive. They were trying to go with the insurance companies or people with lower back pain. And Reed Black and I both sat in one. Reed Black had he was one of our reporters for years, and he had a pretty good story about sitting in their test rig they had down at Matt's. And I got to sit there and hold the microphone as he was going up and down in this seat. And then they turned the Bose ride on. Uh-huh. And I mean, he went from going up and down 4 or 5 inches to going up and down no more than a quarter of an inch. And if you looked at the base below the chair, mm-hmm. it was moving all over the place. It was, moving 4 or 5 inches. Yeah. And he wasn't moving at all. So it did work, but I think they were trying to get insurance companies to pay for it.
Well, and to your point, the technology is there. I saw another product from a company called Gray Mag at Louisville. And, they had it mounted and hooked up to air. And when they'd flip the switch, I mean, that base, what the seat was bolted to would just start going crazy, simulating one of the roughest roads you'd ever be on. But yet the seat cushion was barely moving, and you could carry on a conversation with the person sitting in that seat, and it was amazing. But these seats are thousands of dollars. Now, yep. Gray Mag does have that seat down to less than half of what the old Bose legendary seat was. So as we get more advancements like televisions or microwaves or car stereo, things do get more cost-effective and actually cheaper to the end user in some instances. And I think we're going to see some extremely high-end seats that a guy can own for $20-some hundred versus the $5,000 and $6,000, and I even heard $10,000, on Bose way, way, way back, and I'm talking 20 years ago. But I think that is coming, and guys will actually be able to come up with a way to afford a $2,500 seat if you have recurring back pain, if you've had recurring multiple back surgeries, if you've got, old sports injuries or whatever, you're going to be able to get that now for something that you can reason in your mind and say, okay, if I go borrow $2,500 and I pay that out over a year, that seat's really worth that to me and I want that seat. I think those are in the marketplace now, although they may not be real common. Those $1,000, $899 to $1,000 seats, that's something that, here at Four State and other Chrome shops and even, Peterbilt, Freightliner, Kenworth dealerships, we're selling seats like that every day. And they are very, very nice. They are going to last, 5 to 7 years relatively with no adjustments, really no maintenance, no lubrication. These seats are really built to last nowadays. They got multiple adjustments, not only in the air lumbar, but some of them with the highly sophisticated shock for the easy ride down in the air base. Those are even adjustable, where if you like it a little stiffer or you want a little more cush, a little softer ride, those gas shocks now are adjustable to where you can really kind of dial them into your liking.
Cush for your tush.
The cush for your tush, exactly.
Oh, God. Sorry, guys. Hey, low-hanging fruit. I had to do it.
It was. Well, I'm kind of curious, Brian, we're talking here about primarily replacement seats, but I've noticed that OEM seats have gotten a lot better too. I mean, are the OEM seats coming up to the standard you get with the replacement seats?
They are in some cases. I don't think it's widespread. I think manufacturers, a lot of times, just like Ford or GM, they don't always spend the most money they can on the seat or the steering wheel or the sound system for that matter. They kind of find that happy medium, and that's their happy place. And then, if you want to upgrade to the King Ranch, in the case of Ford, you can certainly do that. But I think a lot of the aftermarket seats are largely superior to the seats that come in the new trucks. I just think they offer a lot more. I know if you buy an aftermarket seat versus going to the dealership and ordering the seat that came out in your truck, you're going to save a ton of money going with an aftermarket seat and be able to have some options in there, whether it's, armrest or color or multicolor or upgrades or heat and cool or massage or things of that nature. You're going to have a lot of that in the aftermarket where you probably won't get hardly any of that when you spec out your new truck, let alone order one off the dealer's lot. Or buy one off the dealer's lot, rather.
Well, I'm kind of curious. I want to go back a little ways here, Brian, because you used a term there that I have not heard before, and that just may be displaying my ignorance, but ultra leather. What the heck is ultra leather, and how does it compare with cloth or regular leather or vinyl?
Well, it's kind of a play on words, but let's just call it simulated leather. Ultra leather is the brand, but for a decade or better, probably the biggest part of 2 decades, our best-selling seat was the Bostrom Wide Ride. You guys have seen those in show trucks, and I mean, they're real like cushy, pillowy looking, like they're a wide, really inviting seat, and they've just got the smoothest leather material. Well, that was never leather at all. It was ultra leather, and I don't know its origin or where it's made or who the supplier is, but that stuff was so soft, and it would never crack and dry crack, even though that does give real leather character, sometimes you don't want that. And the ultra leather would seldom, if ever, get that weathered, aged, dry cracking to it. It was always like soft and pliable. And the great thing was all you had to do to clean it was like 409, Windex, just your basic household cleaners. You didn't have to be specific with, the leather treatment and then the leather conditioner and then the leather after treatment. It was like the ultimate and user-friendly to clean. And, of course, it didn't, soak up and get stained like cloth does. It was just a really cool, and still is to this day, and a lot of manufacturers offer truck seats that are ultra leather, which is a synthetic leather that, in my estimation, it's better than the real stuff.
Wow. That's amazing and interesting. What are some of the latest innovations? We've talked about things that go back, even 20 years, but what in the past couple of years are the newest innovations in these seats?
The most highly sought after, and we heard murmurings of these and got to saw them at Louisville maybe every year for the last 4 or 5, was the heated and cooled seats. And I'm not going to use the word air conditioned because they're not really air conditioned or cooled. They're really just vented. It's just blowing ambient temperature air up through the seat. So if you've got your air conditioner on and the cab's cool, you're blowing cool air up through the seat, which is the same way largely I think a car or pickup truck seat works. But you can actually now get these, and they are one of our hottest selling crazes down here at Chrome Shop Mafia is the Vendetta seat, which incidentally is real genuine leather, but they're in stock and they come heated and cooled. And, this time of the year, everybody's getting really heat sensitive. Like when they, get up out of the bunk before they go to work, and get up there in the driver's seat, they want to click that heat on, give it 10 minutes before you jump in there, and then your seat's all nice and toasty warm. And then the same way you get into July and August, you can have that thing kind of cooling, blowing that cool air up through the seat cushion and backrest as you're rolling down the highway. So the latest request, and you can actually get it now for us, has been the heated and vented seats.
Very cool. Well, Brian, we're out of time here. It's a lot of interesting stuff, and we could go on for some time, but thank you very much for all the information.
You bet. We'll get together. We'll talk about seats sometime in the future.
If you have questions for Brian Martin, you can email them to Bossman on Landline Now at ChromeShopMafia.com. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
And we're back, and we'll close out the week with a road trip of sorts for a look at the sights and the sounds at state capitol buildings where lawmakers are crafting rules that could affect you and your livelihood. Joining us with the details, as always, Keith Goebel of Landline Magazine. Happy New Year, Keith.
Scott, I was gonna say to you, is it too soon to say Happy New Year yet?
It's never too soon.
But you,
it's the New Year somewhere in the world, as they say, right?
Happy New Year. Happy 2024.
There you go.
A lot of exciting things, in the offering for 2024, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Let's hope so.
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll see what 2024 has in store for us. But for the time being, we'll kind of look at 2023 and close things out here with what a couple states are doing. And we've got our eye on Oregon here today, where some lawmakers are calling for an emergency session on the state's weight mile tax. Let's go over all the details here, Keith. What is the concern here with this particular tax?
Yeah, well, hey, I guess brief background, cars and trucks there in Oregon, they pay into the state's road maintenance fund. For passenger vehicles, they're doing it via the state's motor vehicle fuel tax. Commercial vehicles, they're doing it with the weight mile tax. Now, both pay registration fees, but for commercial vehicles, the largest vehicles there in the state, as far as when they're fueling it up, they're doing it, they're paying in with the weight mile tax. And according to research that has been made available there from the state as part of their biennial highway cost allocation study. If anybody's going to
exciting.
If anybody's going to be able to remember the name of that study, the highway cost allocation study had some pretty informative figures, specifically with what are heavy vehicles paying as far as, or what is their share that they're paying into the highway fund, essentially, and what the most recent 2-year report showed that heavy vehicles, they have been overpaying by 16%. And then the current study that they've done shows that heavy vehicles are overpaying by about a third. So more than twice as much overpaying they were the previous study. So trending in the wrong direction as far as, you've got two state lawmakers, two Republican state lawmakers there in Oregon that they want to address this issue. They don't want to wait for the regular session to begin in February. They want to do it as part of a special session. So they're pressing the state legislature to vote on having a special session so that they can address this issue.
Yeah, and you mentioned those figures there. That is pretty eye-opening in and of itself. But when you look at what that means in terms of dollars per year, I think there's one lawmaker, and you mentioned this in your piece on landline.media, there's one lawmaker that's come out and said that's essentially close to $200 million in overpayments from the owners of large trucks per year. I think I got that right. Yeah. And that's a lot of money. And obviously when you add it all up and it's coming out of everybody's pockets there, that's a real concern. Yeah. And I think part of the concern there as well is that this cost is being passed on to consumers on down the line. So this doesn't just affect the truck drivers out there who are paying more. This is everybody.
Yeah, that's among the points that are being made by the two lawmakers. They put out a press statement as they're trying to get some backing for this special session. In Oregon, you don't have to have the governor call a special session. You can have the legislature call their own special session. You just have to have a simple majority of lawmakers in each chamber to do that. So yeah, among the points that were being made by those two lawmakers that are pursuing this is, yeah, the estimate is the Oregon DOT says trucks overpaying by about $200 million a year, and when you've got trucking operations that are having to foot bills that are forced upon them by states and others, those costs they get passed along in just about all cases. Yeah. Lawmakers pointing out that gets down to the level of the consumer. So among the reasons why they're telling their fellow lawmakers that we need to get into session and we need to address this. Also worth pointing out that it is against the state's constitution for road users to pay more than other road users, having a disparity in the amounts that are being paid. And the point being made is that truckers there's a disparity there, and it is against the state's constitution. So they need to get in and work on this. Don't want to wait until the regular session begins in February. It is worth pointing out, Oregon in 2024, in even numbered years, the state of Oregon has budget sessions, and their budget sessions are essentially short sessions. It's about 35 days worth of work instead of an odd numbered year whenever they're going to be in for multiple months. It is a short period of time where they have to get stuff done. And again, the two lawmakers that are pursuing this change, they said they don't want to wait. They don't want to wait for that short session because it might not get addressed. And at that point, they would need to have a special session regardless afterwards. Mm-hmm. But they just want to get this done. They want to have a special session, a one-day special session that would begin in early January. We should be finding out any time what the vote is on this, but obviously they're holding out hope that the majority of their fellow lawmakers will be in support of this, at least be in support of coming back and talking about it.
Yeah, you would hope that they would, and you would hope that they would come up with some sort of solution to make it right. And for those who have been overpaying, hopefully some sort of rebate, or not rebate, but refund maybe. I don't know what that looks like, but I guess we'll find out there in Oregon. You'll keep us updated. Let's move on here. We've got a couple minutes left. Let's shift east to Tennessee, where the state DOT is forging ahead with plans for more toll lanes. And this is a big project, it looks like they're proposing, Keith.
Yeah, the Tennessee DOT, they've unveiled their 10-year, their massive transportation plan that encompasses everything that they'd like to get done. I mean, it's a $15 billion transportation plan over the course of the next decade of projects that they've identified, and really where they're planning on coming up with the revenue to cover this plan. You've got their work program, annually a work program that amounts to a little over $1 billion over the course of the next decade. But the largest part of it is what was approved during the 2023 transportation session, the legislative session. They had a transportation law that appropriates $3 billion from the state's general fund for transportation purposes. And one of the big issues that they're trying to address for transportation is addressing congestion concerns, and they tout how they're a growing state and they need to try to stay ahead of this as best as they can. I think I may have even mentioned myself here in recent weeks, recently traveling to Tennessee, and I was really surprised on how bad traffic was there. So I can definitely appreciate what they're trying to do here, do something, but specifically what they have identified as one of the methods for reducing congestion is having choice lanes. Choice lanes, as they're described in Tennessee, they are additional capacity. They are not taking away from the free lanes that people have on certain stretches of interstate, but it is adding a lane each way so people can choose, if they want, they can choose to, pay a fee and use that, with the idea being that it will alleviate some of the congestion in those remaining free lanes.
So this is a proposal, right? It's a plan. Is it a done deal, or do we have more to do?
It is part of the DOT's plan there. They've identified, their first stretch of roadway that they've identified that they would like to get this taken care of is Interstate 24 from Nashville to Murfreesboro, but some others also included in this that they believe are really the first step, again, to addressing worsening congestion issue there in Tennessee.
We'll keep an eye on this one as well, or Keith, we know you will, and keep us updated. We appreciate it as always, and once again, Happy New Year, Keith.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
That's our show for today. We appreciate you tuning in and hope to see you again in the new year. Until then, take care and drive safe.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a
professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.